Welcome back to another Union Street podcast. Today, we are with Derek Cook.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Derek, thanks for being here, man. Let's hear it for Derek.
I don't know. I think that was underwhelming.
Derek, if you guys aren't familiar, Derek, you're the best service industry professional in this whole Southern Illinois region. You're amazing. What you do for your clients, see you work is amazing. So I want to talk about that, talk about your background, your product of this community, and hear it from your perspective, because I think you have a really unique perspective that is worth sharing.
There's a lot of kind words right there, and I do appreciate that. And I'm proud to be part of this community. And I've moved away for a little while and came back, and I've always been hometown proud and also proud of Southern Illinois. And so it's exciting to work with individuals that are starting to create these nice little, different types of businesses and things like that. And it's fun to interact with them on a daily basis.
Yeah. And I get to have the pleasure of just walking up across the downtown here in Marion to get to see you.
Isn't that awesome?
Come visit you. And yeah,
wherever we get to walk. I mean, we briefly, before this, we're talking about our neighborhood coffee shop. And that's something that we lacked for a little while when a lot of Java left. And when Crown Brew was going to be rumored to come here, it was like, oh yes, here we go. Because it's fun. It's like any metro small area, when you think of like Chicago and you have like 76 small neighborhoods, like 76 Carbondale smashed together. And you want to have this it's a luxury of being able to walk, 50 yards this way, 50 yards that way, and you get this and you get that and you get this. And we're now starting to see that, especially with the revitalization of the downtown area in Marion. And I love having that, so.
You're right. It is a luxury because, for this size of a rural area.
Exactly.
To have that type of neighborhood vibe going on.
Yeah.
I think it's awesome. And to see live music.
Yeah. To
see shows at the Civic Center, and they got new places coming in. The coffee, I mean, it's great, man.
And the irony is 100 years ago, that's what we had here.
Yeah.
That's what the square area was. That was the downtown area. Everyone would promenade and walk. And of course, you get out of the way of some horses and buggies. But, 150 years ago, that's what we had downtown. So it's fun to see that revival in a way, so.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And so, Derek, You grew up in Marion, right?
I did. I grew up in Marion. I was born in 73, Nixon baby. And so, some of my earliest memories I do remember a lot of the pop culture on television at the end of the 70s. And, I was able to see Star Wars at the drive-in. My dad took me, the first time he wanted us to see it, Disney had on a cartoon called The Rescuers. There was, I think, some mice and an alligator or something. And my mom wouldn't let us see Star Wars. And my dad got out of the theater and he's like, no, they're going to go see it. So there was the old Marion Drive-In up on 37. And that's where we first saw it. I saw Bakshi's animated Lord of the Rings at the Varsity Theater, I think when I was 5. And my dad was a big Trekkie before that. And so I was always into genre entertainment. And so, little geek Derek starts to form and forge, and you got the 80s, and I guess I went to high school at the end of the 80s and got out around 91 and was a very good student, by the way. And I never drank. I never did anything crazy. My dad scared the snot out of me and my brother about drinking. He had some tragedy in his family due to drinking. My mom's side, she's Ukrainian. And so it was really weird having, family that was here in Marion that was really close-knit. That was my dad's side. And on my mom's side, you'd go to dinners, and it was an interesting situation there. My grandmother lived in Macedonia, which is between Benton and McLeansboro, up near Dahlgren. And it was just an old farm, and it was just her because my grandfather was born in the late 1800s, and he passed when I was 5 in 78. And so it was just her alone, and she was definitely a babushka. They refused to speak English. They didn't really like the country too much. They didn't like being forced out of, the Ukraine area. It's a big, long, deep story. But I think another 5 podcasts would cover that one.
It's a lot of history there.
So, you just got this crazy growing up that I was unlike a lot of kids, my brother, my sister, and we didn't have a lot in our neighborhood, even though we lived in Marion. And, you slowly start to find your own personality, and you start to listen to your own music because you feel like an outcast in a way. We were probably one of the more interesting slices of Americana. We just didn't quite fit into the vibe. And I like to think that I have taken a lot of that interesting alternative approach to how I lived, going into my 20s and in my 30s and especially in my 40s, and bringing it back. And we like to do things a little bit differently, especially where I work now, where, we like to think at John Brown's, and which I probably didn't mention, I do work at a bar called John Brown's on the Square. And we're very proud of that business, and we're very proud that we marched our own beat, and we do things that maybe other people are afraid to do. And yet we've seen throughout the last 15 years that we have now spearheaded certain things. So it's, all that just to say, everyone should take that approach too. You see that a lot in popular media, march your own beat. So
I think that's so cool. And I see that, like, whenever I come visit you at John Brown's, that music influence that you were talking about, that alternative, that sort of just exuberates with you as a person, it seems like.
Yeah. There we do, we're going to cover all kind of, when you want to say rock and roll, that's a big umbrella. In 2022, it was big in 12, it was big in 02, even to say rock and roll in 92 was pretty big. And so it keeps getting bigger and encompassing more and more genres. So we do, we play it by ear, and we look at who's coming in that door. And there are a lot of overlaps of different persons that do enjoy our bar, whether it be at, 3 p.m. or it's, 12 a.m. And so you're going to hear a lot of different types of what's rock and roll or what's music. And, it could sound like Americana. It might sound like country. It might be R&B. It could be very much a heavier alternative. Each of us have those musical backgrounds. John does, I do, persons that have come through there, his sons, we all were live musicians and had our fair share of touring and playing shows and being frontmen. I did that for a long time. I think it was like 22 years, from 90 through 12. So we have that music side as well. And how do you approach the service industry with that sort of thing? And, there you go. If you're waiting at a table, that's you're a performer, and how well of a performer you are, it heightens their dining experience. And so same thing with the bartender.
Totally. And again, you're the best bartender in this whole area. The best drinks. I can't tell you how many times I've been to the bar and someone says, I don't know what it is, but whatever Derek makes, that's what I like. I have no idea. I don't know anything about cocktails or whatever, but whatever Derek, he's going to make me something delicious.
The actual chemistry or whatever behind making a drink it's not rocket science. It's, because you've got 4 ounces, and what are you going to do with 4 ounces? And, this is not something I've come up with. You can read it in books, and, 2 of those ounces, that's your strong component, and the other 2 ounces are not your strong component. But even if you tweak one way or the other, and it's not just a 50-50, if you have a 55-45, you need to make sure that there's a good balance. You need to know if your bourbon is sweet, then you're going to slack off on some of the sweetness of your other components, and knowing your modifiers and your different vermouth and your amari and things like that. And also the most important part of a cocktail is water, and how much water are you adding to it, whether by shaking or stirring. Now, that's what I said is not rocket science. It's being able to read the customer and get feedback from them. There are really cool bars around the country that don't have that drink menu, and that's their whole thing. Let's go to this, let's go to Attaboy, because we know that they're going to say, okay, what do you like to drink, and this and that. And they go through this flow chart of questions, and that's what you should be able to do with the customer. And I think that's probably what makes a good bartender, outside of how is that person is at service. Are they hyper vigilant? Are they constantly looking up and down the bar? That's one part of it. And then, of course, how you make the drink is the other part. So
it's so cool to see, like, your creativity in that. And, like, whether it's adding sweetness or smokiness or all those different components. I remember I was just the other day, there was like 4 different things all happening with this one cocktail that you were building. And it was like, man, look at all these things, like how you can combine the flavors. And it's just so cool to see that uniqueness, and you're not going to get that tailored specificity anywhere else.
Yeah, and you're probably not going to get it at our bar either when we're really busy.
Yeah.
It's a lot of times that's the happy hour rush. It's as fast as you can, pop open a beverage and pour a shot. That's as, you're only limited to the 2 hands that you have.
Sure.
I wish I had more. But, later in the evening when it's kind of died down a little bit, I can give, more attentive service to somebody and go through that whole thing and pull 8 bottles instead of just pulling 1. And it's kind of fun, and people will know. I'll say, hey, let's do something different, and then you can split things up in that pie chart in your head.
Yeah, it makes a lot of fun.
Then because when I look at liquor bottles, I look at those flavors and I look at the different notes, so I know that I can get, a mezcal, and I know that I can have some smokiness come off of that and that slight peatiness, or I might know that there's a peatiness to a certain Irish whiskey that you don't necessarily have to use a Scotch. But if I want to get some of those wooden notes, that maybe a 3-barrel aged Scotch, I'm going to bring that in, and just use a 1/4 ounce. People call that a splash, but a 1/4 ounce can move a beverage one way or the other. If you use too much, then it's a bully, and it's going to outshine the main spirit. And you don't want to. No one likes a bully, so
sure.
That
nuance, man, is really fascinating to watch.
Yeah, I mean,
and the product is
it's thank you. It's the same with cooking. I think the most common person will go, "Oh my gosh, that's too salty," and that's the same sort of thing. You want that drink to push one way or the other, and everyone has a different palate. You can make what you think is the perfect drink, and someone will go, "Ooh, that's just too sour." It's because we're not all the same. So it's just like mixing. You don't want one thing to blow through the other. That guitar is too loud, or the keyboards were too loud, and let's bring that snare down. So it's just a fine balance, finding the balance. We could go on and on. So
on that note of the music, can we talk about some of your music influences? Growing up, and then even playing, even through today, because I know you do a lot still today.
Yeah, I would like to. I think the reason I probably forged the taste that I did is because I didn't have a whole lot of influence at home. I'm not saying that my mom and dad didn't listen to music. My dad worked a lot of hours, and maybe I blocked out a lot of that childhood. They had an album collection. They had an 8-track collection. Their album collection was not as large as others. I do remember, like, my mom was a big Bee Gees fan. The White Album was there, and so I guess she liked the Beatles. My dad was probably more on the countryside. I remember some Johnny Cash albums, Merle Haggard, but his favorite band was Creedence Clearwater Revival. And so we turned into radio kids. We each had our little FM radios, and I would listen to the pop stations. There was EBQ and CIL. I don't know why I didn't tend to get into the rock, which would have been the Eagle or TAO or whatever it is. And we finally got cassette players, and we'd been buying, we'd buy 45 singles, but they were all pop. I mean, it was, I got into, like anybody, Madonna, the breakdance music, with a lot of the earlier hip hop that would come out. I was fascinated by the drum beats, which are almost electronica. And what was interesting is I didn't realize what was going on in music. There was so much breaking in the late 70s, the post-disco, the postmodern, the punk. And it was happening all around me, and I lived here and didn't know about this until I was probably around 12 or 13. And with my money I'd earned in the summer working with my dad, he was a school teacher, but he built during the summertime. I bought a really, really horrible skateboard from Kmart. It was not good at all. I remember the brand was Nash. And the next year, the next school year in the fall, there was a book fair. And there was this skateboard book. And I was like, oh, this is cool. Look what these guys are doing, and that's how I became a skater. And I'm on the bus, and this kid, I kind of got in a fight with him, and we were both really good persons. We immediately made up, and we're sitting on the bus, and he has a Thrasher magazine. He goes, "Well, you want to borrow this?" I think that was to make up for the fact that we got in a fight. And in that Thrasher magazine were some T-shirt advertisements showing these bands. I'm like, what are these? He's like, those are bands. I'm like, what? And you got Susie and the Banshees, Love and Rockets, The Cure, DRI, Sex Pistols, Misfits, Samhain, whatever. And I was like, well, I got to check these out. And that's where it started. I realized there was music that we weren't being able to hear on the radio because of just our radio market was dominated by what the people want to listen to. And you got to realize this is still when golden oldies, what they called, were a big thing. You could find 4 channels on the radio that were playing, The Twist and Buddy Holly, and so, it was definitely, there was no room for the music we wanted to listen to. And for whatever reason, the greatest fit for me was The Cure. I started, Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me had just been released because Why Can't I Be You and Just Like Heaven were sneaking onto CIL. Someone was putting them in there. And it was, everything branched out from there, but I embraced that as that was my band. And I can tell that my earlier songwriting, the songs were too long. They had 2-minute intros. They were definitely pop, or you had verse, chorus, and, guitarist type thing. And then, maybe a third verse and outro. But yeah, it was The Cure. And as we played, when I got in the band in 90 and stuff like that, as we played and we went further and further, we started spending more money on equipment. So our music got louder and louder, heavier and heavier. And I don't know if that was so much due to the stuff around us, because even, you get into the late 90s, well, we've already been now with 8-9 years of the Pearl Jam, Nirvana, the Northwest thing, and and I'd even been a fan of the Cult, and I don't know if that music really influenced as much as we were just spending more money on things, and we knew we were able to do it, and maybe our guitar playing got better or something. But it was that Cure stuff is. I say that Cure stuff. I don't take it lightly. I'm still a huge fan, and our friend Vinny and I. That's that one connection. When I lived in Chicago or bounced around in Chicago, when I would stay the night at his place, or he'd let me, stay on the love seat, because I think he had like 4 or 5 other roommates. We would exchange Cure licks until like 3 a.m. till we passed out.
Nice. Oh yeah, shout out to Vinny. Thanks for watching, Vinny. Huge Cure fan.
Huge.
And
we're huge Vinny fans.
We're huge Vinny fans. Yeah. So true. So true.
I mean, there's another. See, there you go. You have these persons, and he tours and he goes everywhere, and like he lived in Chicago for a while, and he probably calls parts of Florida his home as well. When you have these individuals that come back here, and I mean, I have no intention of leaving anytime soon. My kids are almost all grown and left. My girlfriend, she's got younger children, and we've got a new place. You have these people that come back here and see the value of this community, which any community has value, but they see how they can input, their creativity and their ideas. I mean, if anybody takes a drive around the square right now, all of the construction, whether it is what the city's doing with the actual tower itself, or all the businesses around. There's just tons of construction, tons of money and ideas coming into that. And that's only just going to spread throughout and down each street. We don't have to worry about what's going on in West Marion. West Marion's always growing and changing, and there's a lot of things going on there. But just the passion to come into these old brick buildings, what you've done here at Union Street, just the passion and saying we can do this and we can make this grow is amazing. And we see other communities around us trying to emulate that. And, so my hat is off to all the persons who, all I do, I go to work every day. And I love being a personality, and I appreciate, sentiments like you have. But I've done 1,000th of the work that's going on around us. And it's pretty cool. It's very cool, so.
Well, it takes the whole community,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
One person can only contribute so much, right? So when you have like a whole bunch of people, and it takes, having a place like John Brown's on the Square for a long time now, having sort of like those staple places that, have been here, have shown that, hey, this can be a really cool place that you can bring your business, bring your neighborhood vibe to. I think you're right. You're just going to see it grow more. And it's really just the beginning of this whole new revitalization effort that's happening here.
Yeah.
And hopefully we can attract to keep the Vinnies of this community, because that's so important.
Yeah, I think one of the most distressing things that I've heard ever since I can remember, no matter what age I was a person's going, I got to get out of here. I got to get out of this area. I can't stand this. And we both know that they're carrying around something on their shoulders. There's a personal demon, and they're never going to outrun that. They might be in a better place, environment. I don't know, something. The environment, maybe. I know. A peace comes over me if I sit in the sand and the surf and the ocean waves are washing up on me. I'm at total peace, and maybe that's what those persons need, and a change of venue. But you can't really blame. You really can't blame the area. Maybe I'm oversimplifying it, but it's just the way I feel. Because you and I probably have faced our own personal adversity, and yet it wasn't Marion that was doing it to me. Maybe the company you keep.
Sure.
Easier said than done, I guess. Again, I haven't walked a mile in their shoes, so
it's a good thing to note. Everybody faces their own type of adversity, and it's not. You're right. It's not location based necessarily. Maybe it is the company. Maybe it is you're having some influences. There's things you can't control, but I think putting your best foot forward, trying to surround yourself with like-minded people that are going to lift you up.
It is about a support system. It really is. And that's why I said, I haven't walked a mile in their shoes or even an inch in their shoes. And some of these persons are dealing with a lot of things. And, we in the service industry have to realize that when someone comes in the door, that's why you've got to be, you want to learn their name, you try to learn their name, be all smiles, learn something about them, introduce them to other people, especially if they're new. We like to think that we are one of the only neighborhood bars around, definitely because we are surrounded by neighborhoods, but it's, we try to be that Cheers where we all know your name and we all celebrate together and create a good, safe atmosphere for that. A lot of times bars, taverns, lounges, it's a misunderstood industry. Obviously, the industry's gone through a lot. Let's just call it 100 years, Prohibition on. And there was so much pre-Prohibition, especially throughout the 1800s when more liquors are starting to be imported into this country. It changed the way drinks were made. The invention of refrigeration, with ice and things like that, had a lot to do with how drinks were served and made in hotel lounges and such. And so we've come a long way. With Prohibition, we didn't look too good. And, sometimes it's been looked at that liquor and such could be the ruination of the American family unit and what have you. But there's, you look around the world and the attitude towards, the drinking industry and stuff like that is a little different than what we've had in puritanical America. So where are we? And I think that it's coming around, and it's in more and more eyes a little bit respectable. You're seeing more successful drink venues throughout the country in different cities. Oh my goodness. I mean, we just got back not so long ago from a trip to Phoenix and in south of Scottsdale, Chandler and Gilbert and these communities. These stretches upon stretches of cocktail bars that were just amazing, and I go into those places and I see these 23-year-olds, 24-year-olds who are making drinks, and I'm just like, wow, their knowledge and their passion, their creativity is just paramount to so much that I try to do. it's exciting. It's very exciting, and so bringing that back here and trying to, it's tough to be something for everybody at a 54-seat bar. It really is, but we try to. And there's a limit to what we can do. Like I said, you got 100 people in there, you're not getting that 8-build cocktail, but we've got great staff, great ownership that allows me to try to tailor drink programs and bring in the liquid. I mean, we've got probably around 120 beers at any given time, all the way from domestic to some of the top draft. And we've got quite a back bar with a lot of different selection to be able to create these types of drinks. So it's fun to be an integral part of little bitty Marion downtown in that regard. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely my favorite watering hole, if you will, tavern, neighborhood bar, for sure.
And what's neat is that, the different approaches to that business model throughout Marion. So you've got, every time you go to a different bar, you're definitely going to a different bar. And that's a neat thing. We don't need 5 John Browns on the squares. We don't need 5 bar A, bar C, bar C. It's neat to go to different business models. And I enjoy going to them all and knowing I'm getting something different. We just went up, my girlfriend and I went up yesterday. There's a little place between, it's about 5 miles north of McLeansboro, Ron and Lynn's Liquor Hut. And they had owned it for like 20 some odd years, maybe almost 30 years. And they were retiring from being the ownership. And yesterday was their big blowout celebration. And you go there and it's such a different type of place, and it's such different people, great people. And they had, I don't know, something silly like, 100 pounds of fried chicken or something. And it was just neat just to stand outside and celebrate that, and with some great faces. And it's, so different than where I work, but it's the same idea. It's the same type of attitude. It's the same approach, just taking a weight off a person's shoulders just for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, or whatever. So it's kind of neat. It's located in the middle of nowhere.
That's super cool. Yeah.
So.
Well done. I think you guys do that very well. I do want to touch on more of the change in industry. How you've seen, you mentioned a little bit all the way back from Prohibition, but how have you seen the industry change maybe over the next 10 years for, the advent of social media, for example? How do you see that and playing a part in the service business overall?
Social media?
From change over, and whether it's advertising or awareness. What would you say about that?
Like, I know for me, I've bartended from one degree or another for only about 12 years. 12 years ago, you just really I didn't consider myself a bartender, but I was getting into the industry, and I started helping out at events at the Pavilion and slowly learning things. And then at the Hideout, I got behind the bar, and, at John's, I was doing more like bar backing. And I've probably only been bartending with a purpose for probably around 6 or 7 years. And social media was integral in that. Not just, and I was reading books at the same time, and I was starting to find books out there, and that just meant going to Barnes & Noble and looking in that section. I think it might have been called Wine and Beer, or Wine and Beverage, and picking out books. And I started the social media side of it. It was YouTube really was the first one that I started finding. I didn't know that persons in the industry, bartenders, and by the way, just a side note, I don't want to act all like, high and pious and everything like that. I know
authority here.
I know about 20 years ago, I didn't think anything of anybody in the service industry. I didn't look at somebody waiting tables, and I wasn't really drinking at the time. I didn't start drinking until I was 30. I didn't look at anybody and go, oh my goodness, they did such a great job. I don't know. I wasn't cool. I was a jerk. I just didn't think anything of it. And now here on the other side, now already we're having this conversation about all this.
Yeah.
I should be slapped. 20 years ago, I should be slapped. But I didn't realize that bartenders and service industry persons were having such a presence on social media, that they were spreading their knowledge. And so I started watching YouTube, and then I found out, searching hashtags on Instagram was a way to find proprietors, the actual businesses, the actual bartenders from those businesses, and they had such a presence that, it's something that I dabbled in a couple of years ago during COVID, and rebranded some of my social media presence as Cocktails with Derek, and it was trying to not go crazy during the downtime. We were closed for 75 days, and that's when I think I came here and we filmed a piece. So even me doing that's nothing new. They've been doing it for quite a while, and it's going to keep happening. It's going to keep having a positive effect. You're going to see more and more of those personalities in the next 10 years, and we don't know where social media will be in 10 years. 10 years ago, we didn't even think of, Snapchat or TikTok. And I understand that those are, TikTok's a forerunner, front runner, and someone's going to buy it and they're going to change the name. And, Facebook has changed and almost become the evil villain in a lot of ways. Yet in 2007, 2008, none of us knew what this really blank, white, starchy looking social media thing was, because we were all in love with MySpace. It's going to change. It's going to change. The interactivity, I've unplugged from it a lot. I used to, if I took 2 steps, I posted about it. I took a selfie about it. I checked in where I took those 2 steps. I've pulled away from that aspect a lot. I know a lot that I need to get back into. John has the Facebook of John Brown's, and I have the Instagram, and I need to plug in more to that. It's a hard balance, because, personally, I try to pull back from that, because I see my children and you see the youth. And I know this podcast is not about the evils or the greatness of social media, but, it does have, I believe, a direct correlation to success in business. I mean, it just does. But I think, though, the personalities, you're going to see more of, almost celebrity personalities already in the industry. And like I said, I follow certain bartenders on Instagram, and I watch what they're doing, and they'll have books, and I'll read their books, and I'll go to their bars, and I will hope that I catch a glimpse of them, which I never have. The bars are great, yeah. But I mean, just because Elvis has a bar, he's not going to grace you with his presence,
Sure.
But huge impact. And surely you'll probably see that locally, I guess. Yeah.
Well, the Cocktails with Derek you mentioned, I know that was a big thing. How, I saw a lot of your work firsthand for the first time was through the video series as you were doing, and the different tutorials and all that. And that was awesome. That was really awesome content you were doing. Yeah.
A lot of people have commented on that. And it's, that's, for me as a performer, that's been an avenue. Bartending is that avenue. I like being on that stage. I do. I'll admit it. And conversely, at the end of a 6-day work week, I do like to be on the other side too. And I'll be really quiet, and people will say, "What's wrong, man? Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm okay. I've been turned on for 6 days. I'm chilling out right now. I'll have my eyes closed. I'm like, or can I get you something?" I'm like, "No, I'm fine. I'm probably in the best place you've seen me all week long."
Right. The other side. But that's cool. You were able to go there, sit there, and, want to be on that other side.
Yeah. And it's, we see it all, whether it's me or my coworkers. You're on the other side, and then people go, "Yay, I get to talk to them." You're like, "Oh, great." So it is that kind of celebrity thing. And again, that's through social media. That's the only reason why I've gone to different bars, because I'm aware of them. So when you dial that back 20 years ago, were we so aware of what was really going on around the community, outside of the community, in your region, across North America, and then around the world, whether it be watching a Netflix series about Asian street food or something that's going on in, urban Los Angeles. We didn't really know that unless we were watching some sort of 2020 special late at night or Nightline, Dateline or something in the 90s. I'm not saying that it wasn't there. I know it was there. I know documentaries were there, and I know that we could read a lot of things, but so accessible. If you say, I'm really interested in watching, waste disposal techniques in Barcelona, whatever, I'm sure you could probably find something about it. And so moving forward in the next 10, 20 years, who knows, man? I'm sure you'll be able to put a VR unit on your head and be the bartender in Moscow and be with him as he's serving people, and be talking to other people about it at the same time. And maybe he can hear feedback or turn it off. There's going to be weird stuff. I mean,
wow. Yeah.
Philip K. Dick probably wrote about it, or it was on Black Mirror.
For sure. Right. That life imitating art, vice versa type of thing.
Vice versa. I mean, there's art affects life, and then life becomes art, and it's a really incredible cyclic thing. So I'm sure there's comments on cave art somewhere where they're like, Ugbug didn't stab the elephant right. And so they graffitied their own cave art. So.
Right. Totally. And speaking of that art, I want to tell this story about the first mural project in Paradise Alley that happened during COVID. Do you remember this, Derek?
I don't know.
In the alley of the Civic Center in Lavish Bath Box. Sean Vincelette, Josh Vinson were doing a mural. I started help painting.
Was that during COVID though?
Pre?
I think it was pre, because I think I'd had some drinks at the bar.
Okay. Well, I know it's, I remember because you walked over from the bar. Do you remember this?
Yeah.
And
you probably should give me a breathalyzer before you let me have that scissor lift.
Well, you were able to help paint. Do you remember that?
I was, yes.
Can you tell us what you remember about that story?
Yeah, I mean, that was a big special thing. I mean, you may not know this, but that was a special thing for me. I wanted to contribute to that some way, and I know that it was going to be happening. And I think I contacted Sean or Josh, and both of them had said, "Come on down." And when you finally, I might have actually said we'd try to plan a time, and it probably didn't happen. I know that happened on another one too. Could have been Lady Liberty, where it just didn't work out. And when I was in high school, or all my grade school, junior high, and high school, I knew this is a kid. I want to be a fireman. I want to be an astronaut. I wanted to be an artist. And a wonderful educator, Bob Jackson from the junior high, took a great interest in me. Drusilla Drawley, my third grade teacher, he had a student teacher with her, and the student teacher told him about me. And so she invited him over, and he sat me over near her desk. And maybe the rest of the kids were doing math or something. And they set up like a cigar box and some books and had me draw, what I thought I saw. And it's just what I was able to do. I drew 3D, the perspective drawing of those things. And of course, he's like, I remember him saying, I'm going to have my eye on you. And I'm 8 years old, and I'll still always remember that. He said, I'm going to keep my eye on you. And so throughout junior high and through their art program and through high school and that art program, I was always involved in, what would be termed as, your accelerated programs to get kids and fast track them to get into an art career. Well, that didn't happen, of course. But, at that same time, I'm a sophomore at high school, and it's known that I can do these sort of things. And Sean was there at the same time at the high school. I think Sean might have been 2 years ahead of me. So we're both in K. Howell's art classes. And Yolanda Peterson took note of this sort of thing as well. And Yolanda, what a staple, what a god in the community that she was for so many decades. And her involvement with the Civic Center, you always had your high school productions or theater productions there. And so all of a sudden here I'm a freshman. That was what it was. I was a freshman in her sophomore English class. And she gets me onto the stage crew and immediately puts me on painting the sets. And I'll always remember, like, it was Sound of Music. I think that Mayor Absher was one of the leads in that production. I know that for a fact.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool history here.
He was a lead in that production. They always had split cast, so they would have, to share the love, but he was one of the main guys on, like, maybe a Friday night and on Saturday night. And then when they did Sunday encores, they would switch him up. And there were these two rotating bases there on the stage, and which, if it allowed them, it could have been 3 scenes per, and they would rotate them, or it just could have been 2 scenes. I don't remember. But the Abbey, the Abbey, and there are going to be people that love The Sound of Music and be like, oh my gosh, this guy has no idea what he's talking about. It's been a while. I can hum along. And I remember I painted that one all by myself, and it was, and then I remember that Linda Biasy, Elizabeth Biasy, was maybe the lead with Mike. And Linda gave me this card that said, thank you so much for painting this set, and gave me a paintbrush and everything. And I'm almost 50 and I remember this. And, it burns down in 99, I think. My sister, Larissa, was one of the last leads in a cast, like a week before it burned or something. That may have been Bye Bye Birdie. There's another little connection there.
Wow.
And, for that thing to be rebuilt, and then all of a sudden you start to see these murals going up. When I say you see them going up, to my knowledge, there was just the one painting on the outside of the old Sears building, the Egyptian arts.
Right.
And then there was the interesting guys looking up, like an architectural type, 2 guys over here, your neighbor.
That's right.
Yeah. And so you guys start doing that. And I'm like, man, I got to get in on this, because for me, the old Orpheum Theater, the Civic Center, even with my own family, and heck, I had an uncle that was a bouncer there, and my dad, they would go there and line up and throw popcorn at the movie screen, in the 50s. And just all of, I also remember something else. I think I accidentally knocked over a ladder or something in the old one and ripped a big hole in the black curtain.
Oh no!
Who knows how expensive that was. I remember Mrs. Peterson was just like, oh boy, this guy, and I'm like, oh no, I've ruined it. But yeah, I remember walking over there, and you guys allowed me to get up on that. It was almost sundown, and I think I set up my phone and did a time lapse video, and I was only able to spend like about 30 minutes, maybe, rolling on one color. And I felt like such a big part of that,
That's awesome.
So yeah, you probably spent hundreds of hours, and here's my 30 minutes. So
no, that's amazing, Derek. And having that, taking it back from a brush in your hand as a freshman, all these years later, right there next to the Civic Center, all that history baked in, and being able to be a part of that, put it on the wall. Now that's going to be there for quite some time, I'd say.
Quite some time, I hope.
Yeah.
Oh, I also remember I do this. I had this Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. I have this other alter ego that no one knows about on Instagram.
Ooh, okay. Let's hear. Can we break some news on the podcast with this?
It's been going on for a while, and only when I'm feeling a certain way in the wee hours of the morning do I ever post. So there's only like about 15 or 16 posts. It's called Marion After Dark.
Really?
Did you know that was me?
No, I had no idea, Derek. Okay.
Because I think I tagged you not so long ago.
Yes.
I took some pictures of the back.
Nice.
Yeah, that's Derek leaving work after he feels a certain way.
Well, that's really cool.
So Marion After Dark is...
Shout out. Follow that. Check out those photos. I had no idea, Derek.
Yeah, I'll never put my name on that. I don't want people to judge it by the funny guy that I am.
Sure.
Right.
I love it.
So there's another part of social media.
Yeah.
And I think that I'd like to see more younger persons take the bull by the horns, and the allure of being in the limelight and maybe someone gets too much attention in school, and we're talking about children. Maybe somebody gets too much attention, and so social media is their way to try to get attention. But it'd be neat to see them grab it and use it more with a purpose, to push their business platforms and their interests and, more about themselves. So that'd be a neat thing to see. I'm sure it's already happening, and I'm just not aware of it. But, and plus the limits that are put on persons probably under, is it 18 maybe on certain?
I think so.
And, I get it. It's all in a birth year, and they say they were born in 1900, and it allows them to utilize it. But I know they use it so much more for their social needs, but to use it more with a purpose for their arts would be cool.
Yeah. So going off of that momentum from that mural that you were able to be a part of, since then, right, there's been a lot we've talked about that has been added or is coming, or new construction to this neighborhood. Mm-hmm. What do you envision? What would you like to see? What would be, what's your vision for that?
Man, that's a good question. I really like the fact that, and I know there's a lot of criticism of persons that just like they're stuck in their own rut or what has been, and we don't need that. I like the idea that they've got this ice skating area that's going to happen, and when it can happen. People go, when are we going to use that? I don't know. We could. We'll have it. And during the summer months, I'm unfamiliar with what they're going to be doing there. I don't know what the surface is going to be like, but they'll be able to that may be where you set up your bleacher stage for choirs to sing or to have little outdoor gatherings and things like that. And the outdoor aspect of that, we live in a blistering region. I get it. It's hot. It can be really hot 9 months of the year. It could be kind of chilly and rainy, 6 months of the year. If you go September, October, November, December, January, February, March, you could have 8 years of cruddy weather, but you're going to be able to have something like that. And if you see more outdoor type things around the square, I know we have intentions, of having an outdoor deck. I know that it could be seasoning or whatever restaurant goes on here. I know that to the west of that, there's a building section that's been raised. To understand that might be an outdoor patio area. More outdoor things, rooftop.
Wow.
We can't discount. I've heard talk of certain persons that you and I both know, the idea of some rooftop areas. So in the next 10 years, in the next 2 years, you might see more restaurants with maybe outdoor seating. COVID taught us, and if you go to New York, I suppose the fire lanes, now have really permanent outdoor seating. I went to New York post COVID. And they were already allowing people in restaurants, but they had a lot of outdoor seating. You could tell that some were thrown up really quickly, and some had been amended and changed and more permanent, with hanging with plants and artwork and this and that. And it's more able to accommodate persons for, if they want to be outside. And outdoor seating is not a new thing. Oh my goodness, it's been around forever,
sure.
Hundreds of years, Europe and then, even when, our closest, St. Louis, but the closest place that I've always gone to and lived out was Chicago, and there was always outdoor seating available. To see that here in Marion, that's great. See it in Carbondale, that's great. I've also thought, and I would like to see this become a thing, and I don't know if it could. I think it's public acceptance. There's safety involved. There's insurance involved. But if maybe during the summer months, the fair weather months, once a month, close off Market Street from, let's say, Benny's area all the way to like the Elks, to where persons could walk. That's maybe when you could have the car show, and have some vendors up there. It's, I know we had HubFest, and that was a big thing. It doesn't have to be that elaborate, but have open containers I think Carbondale does that in what they call their entertainment district.
Yeah.
But have an open container thing. I think that COVID proved that you could have alcohol outside and people be responsible. Cut that off at a certain hour. Say cut off that open container thing by sundown. I don't know.
Sure.
9 p.m.
Yeah.
You know, because that way you open it up. Have a couple officer presence, you know, and that way some of the sillies, they're going to be that statistical outlier that some persons are using alcohol to get a little silly, and that could be more the wee hours of the morning. So for all community safety standards, knock that off by 9 o'clock. I don't know. It's just an idea.
I like that idea.
You know, in playing some things around that where you were able to have some, you know, open acoustic acts up on the square. And that's another thing that you see now in all of our communities is that live music, 20 years ago, you didn't see what you see now. Now every restaurant seems like they have to have an acoustic act playing. That is awesome. You know, it used to be, where did you go to see live music? And where I work at John's, he was a purveyor in making sure, you know, that happened with his passion and his knowledge of music and live music and his connections throughout the country. That's how he's able to bring in a lot of these people. But to have that all over the place, I mean, you've got a lot of options out there, and I would suppose as a performer, there are a lot of options on getting on a bill somewhere, whether it be a winery or a coffee shop or this and that. It's really cool, very cool. I like the community's done that, and I don't think that we've seen the cap. We haven't seen the ceiling. I'd like to see more.
Definitely. I think we will.
And even younger persons, maybe there you go. You know, it seems like you have to be 21 to be able to get in a place. Well, what about maybe some young artist showcases? I'm not saying open mic, you know, a coffee shop and an all ages event or place to where we go, you know what? Only persons under the age of 18 can do this. I don't know. That would be a neat thing because there's a lot of young kids out there with big dreams, and where do they get to play? You know,
it's a good point, Derek.
So garages, just like it's always been, but let's give them a stage. So
I think that'd be great.
Yeah,
I think there's having more opportunities for that. It will, you know, they'll remember that. Maybe 10 years they'll come back, and play, be a regular, you know, at John Brown's or wherever the wineries. Yeah. They can add that and, you know, just have that environment that these things can grow more. You know, just do, you know, everyone gets 20-minute slot. The young artist series or something like that. And I'm sure someone can blow us away, you know, not to downplay them and think that, oh, they're barely going to be able to play guitar because there are a lot of talented kids out there. So. And these days, the kids seem like they have, again, resources that we didn't have. And especially with the internet, they can just go on YouTube and learn so much now.
They can, you know, and
so the youth has a lot of great potential for sure.
It would be, you know, it would take a place like Union Street to also be able to have, let's say, it's an internet cafe, right? Those have been around now for 20 plus years, I'm sure. If you had an internet studio cafe to where you were able to go in a room and you had your mixing board and you had the option to record a track, and there are lots of file sharing services out there. They create a profile, they record a song, they get feedback. Other people are, you know, maybe put stuff on top of their music. I don't know if they have those sorts of places, you know, internet music studio cafes for young persons to share their ideas with. I don't know where you'd even start with that business model, but that would be an interesting thing. So.
That'd be really interesting.
Yeah.
I think it'd be really cool. So, hey, let's make it happen. It starts with an idea. Goes from there, man. You
no finger pointing here.
I'd love to do that, you know, and we've actually had some recording, like going back to Wingtips, Cutting Room Floor was actually recorded in this very room.
Yeah.
And we've had a couple other bands here record as well. Bad Ghost, they put out their first EP. Banger was in this studio as well. And we want to do more and more and just like share more art and music with the community because there are so many talented people here and have a lot to share. And so, you know, it takes a lot and there's challenges obviously, but you know, like you said, we're not going anywhere anytime soon. So
Right.
we, each month to month, each quarter, every year now, we're trying to figure out, okay, what can we do? What can we add something new? So I think something like that would be really.
There's a lot of work.
Really amazing.
That's a lot of work for you. And that's, if you're only one person, or if you only have, 3, 6, 9 people on staff, it's someone's got to hit the road and or be hitting the street with that engagement with schools and things like that. And then does someone from that school have the time to work with you? And but if you get that sort of, not to use the old buzzword, synergy going, then it's going to happen faster. And persons in the arts and schools are always looking for an avenue. But when you see cuts in funding and you have maybe not necessarily one teacher per school teaching the arts, and a lot of times now they float them, so then to approach that person, you got to have that person willing to go, man, I'm already working 50 hours a week and I'm raising a family. So it would be cool to think that every school would have a liaison, but
I love it.
That's not for me to say.
Right. Well, we'll see. It's a good thought. And, I think, that vision, I think is, it starts there.
Yeah, it does, So, I think one of the cool things would be if they still have like an art club or something. A lot of times those students, they're the ones who, let's not short sell them. They're the ones who have the passion and the creativity and the desire and the want, and they need that too. And so, I'm sure like a president of an art club of any community would be like, yes, let's do this, and they would put in a lot of the, getting people on board and stuff. They just need the equipment and then the space, and then that's where it goes, the community drives and everything like that. And it may be something that they don't get to see the culmination of it. It may take 4 or 5 years, but like you said, it's got to start somewhere. So, that'd be neat.
I think that's great. I love that. Derek, is there anything you want to cover? Anything that we need to touch on? Anything that you need before we wrap up today's podcast?
I need to clone in myself. I want to spend more time. I spend too much time at work. I want to spend more time with other people. Yeah, I don't know. We've covered a lot.
There's so much more we could get into, and we will.
Yeah, my passions and majority of my time is spent in the service industry. So I applaud all those that are in the service industry, and I enjoy seeing their faces and celebrating their good nights and their bad nights. Where I work, I enjoy when they come in. Again, just this downtown area is such I love coming back to it. I love the feeling of more diversity and acceptance of other persons that come around. We're living in a good time. We're living in a tough time. It's, there's all we've got to do is each be our best and be more open to things. I mean, it all starts with all of us. So I don't like when people point fingers and things like that. And there doesn't have to be such separation. We could all, I'm sure John Lennon wrote something about that. So.
I think the Tale of Two Cities, right? The opening, it was the best of times. It was the worst of times. But how you look at it, what situation is all can be different, but it kind of is that right now. Yeah.
I mean, we're you see a lot of interesting things even in downtown in the square, and you could paint them negative and you can paint certain things positive, but just to reach out and be a little bit more kinder and open-minded. And that may start with dropping some coins in a bucket as you go around the square for a piece of bubble gum, But there's a lot going on, and this is a great time to be living. I say support the youth more. There's a good thing going. I don't care what it is. Support them as much as, if you go to certain sporting events at the high school, the cars are lined down the road. You can barely get to the high school by walking for 10 minutes because there's so many people supporting a lot of that. Support all of it equally. You know, support the music, support the arts, support any sport. It's all about kids, and they have the support, and the money will be there with the support. I mean, you know, the greatness that is happening outside of, switching gears, the greatness of all the music that's coming in, the music and other productions coming into the Civic Center. Support that. You know, you hear about some big outdoor event, you know, in West Marion at Rent One, go support that. You hear of any event, you know, the Magpie Days. I saw an alternative type Magpie Day. You know how the Magpie Market was happening?
Yeah.
There was something like that on Boulevard Street.
Really?
The same day. It was right across from the old youth center, like where the beauty salon is. And all that. I drove past and like, what in the world? There must have been, 100 tents.
Wow.
Anytime you see something like that, support that. I mean, these are all just persons that are, when you guys have your thing, the Union Street kind of arts festival I've seen. I love those sorts of things. Too many people have complained for years. There's nothing to do around here. There's nothing to do. Yeah, there is. Step outside of your door. Go drive around on Saturday. There's a lot of things that you can do. I don't know. They may be talking about rock climbing. There's no hot air balloons. Come on. Come on. You don't have to go somewhere else. You can. That's great. But there's a lot of stuff happening around here, and so.
That's great, Derek. Well, you are such an asset to this community.
Thank you.
To making this a better place to just be, live, enjoy. So I want to say thank you for your influence and input and what you've been able to help provide and just help people access.
Appreciate that.
And so I know you live that out to your being. So what you're everything you're saying right now.
Yeah, it's a joy being part of all this. It really is. And I'm thankful to have a job that where I can be at the forefront, and if I can share and make someone's life better just by talking with them, giving them a libation, and just being there for them, then I've made a difference, and it's not a job. It's performing, and it's an art, and I'm able to have someone around me and perform and make their life better. So, yeah.
That's great.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Well, love what you do. Love who you are.
Love you, man.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on this podcast,
Absolutely.
Derek.
We'll do it again.
Want to have you come back on, dive deeper into all the stuff.
Mm-hmm. Sounds great.
All right. Well, thanks again, Derek Cook. Find you.
Cheers.
Where can people find you?
John Brown's on the Square, 1000 Tower Square Plaza, located between Fox's Comics and Salvation Army.
I like that. That was a nice cadence. So go see Derek. If you're in town, in the area, go to John Brown's, pay him a visit. You're not going to find better service. You're not going to find a better person right here. Thank you, Derek. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to this podcast, the Union Street Podcast. We have a new episode every Friday at noon Central Standard Times. Like us on Facebook. Check us out. We have more upcoming events coming, so we'd love to see you there. Derek Cook, thank you again.
Thanks, Luke.
We'll see you in the next one.
Peace.